We talked about the guys who are already on the roster. Let's get to some of these new guys. We'll start with Ja'Lynn Polk, second-round pick, guy who's super well-rounded. When he was selected, I think some people were kind of confused because he wasn't as explosive or as good at the separator as a lot of the guys who were on the board when he was taken. But now that you kind of hear what people in the NFL were saying, it's like, no, a lot of people had him higher than fans did because he's so consistent. He's also not only a great guy when the ball's in the air at all three levels, but also phenomenal blocker. I'd say one of the best in the class, considering he's getting asked to take on linebackers, charging safeties, defensive linemen sometimes. So what do your profiles say about him and what he could potentially bring to the Pats offense?
Yeah, I was confused as to why people were confused when he went this high. Like, honestly, I was shocked to see there was so much pushback to the Ja'Lynn Polk pick, especially, among Patriots fans. It seemed like they just heard from, I don't know, whoever, that this guy wasn't a good prospect or shouldn't have gone in the second round, or, maybe they wanted him over, maybe they wanted like A.D. Mitchell, right? But, A.D. Mitchell wasn't going to be for everybody. Like, that was just the way A.D. Mitchell was. But, I mean, I'm a big Ja'Lynn Polk fan. I got to say, like, I had him graded as an early, like a priority second round pick, which is kind of right where he went. I'm a big fan just of the consistency of his game. You mentioned it. That was really the thing that stuck out to me the most when you watch his game. As a matter of fact, the most important part of his profile is the 83.5% success rate versus zone coverage in reception perception. That was second among the prospects this year, behind only his teammate Rome Odunze. Very smart receiver room there. They know how to get open against zone coverage. That was my favorite part about Ja'Lynn Polk's game. And like in terms of beating man press coverage, it wasn't like he was bad or anything. He was right around like 68, 69%, which is a pretty solid mark, like kind of right with around the prospect average. And when I'm saying prospect average, I'm not saying prospect average of the entire draft class, because I'm not charting, like 50 receivers. It's kind of a select group that I'm looking at every year. So for him to be as like a 50th percentile player or something like that around man and press, that's pretty good. I think he has better build-up speed than like explosiveness. Like, I think you see when the routes are further down the field, when the routes develop, that's where he really separates. And I'm glad you brought up the blocking too, because it brings me to my like comparison for him that I kind of have to whisper, because you can't like compare somebody to Puka Nacua at this point because he just broke records as a rookie receiver. But his game reminds me a lot of Puka as a prospect coming out. And I know Puka went on the day 3 of the draft. I was a big Puka Nacua fan. I had him more as like a late third, early fourth type of guy, which still he's way better than that. So that's not me taking a victory lap on Puka Nacua. But I really like this like rugged type of receiver, a guy that will mix it up in the blocking, the guy that will, he has good hands, he's consistent, he's confident working the middle of the field. 84.6% success rate on dig routes for Ja'Lynn Polk. Again, just a lot of that sort of overlaps with how I think Puka was used to perfection by the Rams, and I think that Ja'Lynn Polk can kind of give you some of that. A little bit of slot receiver, but he can win outside as a flanker, and really his best stuff, I think, is going to come in the intermediate over the middle portions of the field.
Testing my skills on Prize Picks this season is the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $1,000 with just a few taps. Use the code CLNS for the first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
I like that you whispered Puka Nacua, because honestly, there's a couple of times I was thinking about tweeting that kind of comparison. I know Brett Coleman had a great video breaking down what made Puka so successful. At one point in the video, he talks about how, he's kind of a fullback. He's a slot. You can line him up out wide as an X. And I'm like, it kind of sounds like Ja'Lynn Polk. Because, he's not going to...
Puka's like the weirdest receiver in the NFL because... it's like hard to describe him, and again, it's like he just broke records as a rookie. Like we all should agree that he is good, right? And now it's kind of like a discovery of how good is he, because to me, when you watch Puka week 1 against the Seahawks, I told Puka Nacua this at the Super Bowl. I got a chance to sit down and talk with him for a little bit, and I was like, the moment I knew that like, oh shoot, we got something here, was him running like dig routes against man coverage against the Seahawks, which their defense turned out to not be as good as we thought. Some of those secondary players weren't as good as we thought, but still, these are like NFL defensive backs, press man coverage from the X receiver position. And then like 3 weeks later, he's, running full speed motion, like into dagger concepts as an off. It's like, what is this guy? And sometimes I think, especially when you're scouting players in college, that sort of versatility can almost kind of like trip you up, because it's one thing when you see a guy, you know, like Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, they're like lining up at one, you know, kind of Malik Neighbors a little bit different, but like one spot, and they're doing like consistently winning on these routes, right? And like it's just easy to envision like how this maps to the NFL. I think with Ja'Lynn Polk, because he was tasked with doing so many things sort of in this like Puka Nacua way, it can almost like you're not counting like the 10 reps that are really good at this one thing. You've got to kind of categorize in your brain like 3 reps of this, 3 reps of that, 3 reps of that. And I think that full picture is sort of encapsulated in his RP profile, where, again, rock solid player that I think is going to be pretty good in the league.
Yeah, that versatility is something you kind of see as a theme throughout all the weapons the Patriots got in this draft.
Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code CLNS and get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed.